Hey guys, Thomas the Slow Jr. here, aka Mustached Tom, and I'm here to review the movie Imaginary. If you end up enjoying this movie review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. And one will head over to my petition to help out smaller YouTubers. Second and third, to my Patreon and PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel directly. And fourth, to my Discord server, you can join, collab, chill, and do all that cool stuff for free, and shilling will be reminded at the end of the review. With all that out of the way, let's get into Imaginary. So, I have seen this trailer a ton of times, more so than the two previous movies I have just uploaded, being Kung Fu Panda 4 and Damsel. I've seen this trailer more than the other two, and I'm fairly certain that in a way, didn't really help this movie in the slightest. And yes, if you know my channel in particular, I have done a slew of horror movie reviews that I have under my belt. I would say that I am quite an expert when it comes to reviewing subpar horror movies and really bad ones. And man, oh man, does one ever come up every so often. It's just like, geez, is that a breath of fresh air? I wish Imaginary were that, but I don't think it quite makes the cut, unfortunately. So I can join the pantheon of movie reviews, or rants rather, of movies that are on the horror side that are just like, ugh, come on, what is this movie kind of doing here? But we should get into it, to the plot, the characters, the summary, and, be as objective as possible, though I'm alluding to, this movie not being so great, so that should probably tell you where this movie leans in the direction. So we start with a mother. She is in the role of stepmother at this juncture, and we are kind of jumping into this scene where she's sort of escaping this scenario immediately, spreading her blood on the wall, and fleeing from this voice and saying how this game that they're playing must be over. And manages to make her way out into this bigger room where this man which ends up being her father, turns into this spider-like being and runs towards her, forcing her to wake up from what this end up being is a nightmare. Her husband kind of lightly teases her about it, though kind of also giving her some sense of but if it's serious, all that good stuff. And it shows a bit of a montage here of her and her daughter, or stepdaughter, I guess in this case. And her stepdaughter, Alice, walks up to her and is talking to her about her drawings and how she's able to, have that as a career choice, as it were. And Alice is abrupted by her older sister, so she's in her teens, I believe. Tyler kind of gets her away from stepmom, because stepmom's not cool for her. So anyway, Alice checks in on her again at some point later on, and kind of reinforces this drawing thing, so they are kind of just replaying the scene. Honestly, I don't think you needed to do it twice. I think you could have just cut this one, honestly. Save a little bit of time, you know what I mean? And then she insists on playing hide and seek. But she gets distracted, just the mother does. That's her name, Jess, or Jessica. She gets called outside. And meanwhile, Alice hears a voice calling out to her. She begins to move towards the basement. And she does the horror trope of calling out, "Hello!" Boy, is that a horror trope that it goes back jeebus amounts of years, and boy, do I always find it, like, more oftentimes than not, very, like, ugh, why did you do it this time, you know? It's like, she's young, I don't know, you know? So I'm like, eh. Anyway, so behind, or inside rather, this furnace, she finds herself a little teddy bear named, what she names Chauncey. And then Jess heads back inside, and Alice sort of pushes into her a little bit here, kind of makes her way. And then we see a little bit of Tyler taking a picture, a selfie, as it were, and manages to get someone else in frame, and she heads out to figure out who that was, and we meet Liam, this older guy, who tries to put on a very clear romance, and that's immediately like, oh, we're crossing a line here, clearly. With this being the case. And Tyler's mom, or stepmom, I guess, again, gotta keep doing that, I guess, for the sake of this review, but Jess wants none of that, obviously, so... But Tyler's upset that she didn't get flirted on by this older guy. It's like, oh dear. We then cut to both the parents, stepmom and husband, overhearing the younger daughter Alice talk to her, what they assume is herself, or her imaginary friend. And then they join her in playing this group hide-and-seek game, where they fake us out, or rather, Alice and the husband fake out Jess in a jump scare after she's like looking around for something or rather. So during one of her talks, Alice's talks, this inspires her mom to think of a new way to perceive her characters, the ones that she's been drawing, and interpreting the story in a different perspective. Meanwhile, Alice begins her scavenger hunt, which is all over the trailer, about the whole hurting yourself aspect of it anyway. That's like the one that's like the most notable, I guess. At least from her perspective again. But it does begin with something happy, at least from the side of the paper we are seeing, at least at the beginning of the movie, or pretty early on still in the movie anyway. So during the night, we cut to nighttime where Jess hears some loud ball being tossed about. She overhears Alice once more And it kind of just sees a figure in the room, I guess. It ends up being a person that, like, due to Tyler letting her in, thinking that she had been rescued. This whole segment is like, I don't know what this has to do with imaginary. Honestly, I think they could have cut this entire bit out, because I don't really know what it adds to this bigger plot line about, you know, this whole imaginary thing, if I'm being crystal clear. I mean, we do see one shot of Chauncey. I guess that's what they used to justify the entire scene. I don't know. But anyway. So we see that the dad is heading out to some sort of gig. He has an instrument, so I'm assuming he's like some sort of musician that got a gig. And she insists that she will take care of them. But as she's making her way back, she's met with Gloria, her old babysitter, when she was a kid. And Gloria goes on about how her dad was like this person who went through this change and threatened her at some point. So after that, she goes to visit her father, who seems to be out of sorts. And then we cut to what Tyler has been doing, which is immediately bringing over that boy, the older guy, to her house. He offers up what he's assimilating our drugs, apparently, while they're watching a movie, and she's like, nah, I just want to kind of watch the movie, and he's like insisting upon it. But then he sees some alcohol, and he's like, you know what, I'm gonna go for that instead, but ends up dropping it and spilling it, so he goes off up on his own to clear it, and then he's like mocking Alice a little bit here. And Alice says to the bear that he can be eaten. And he begins to, as we follow him, in his perspective, we see him go through this overhearing this music to hearing Alice's distorted voice, and spots the bear underneath the sheet to have it vanish once he like gives a twice over to the looking of said sheets. And he sees the little ring that you pull on, like underneath him. He tries to like catch it twice and is unsuccessful, though the logistics of where the ring are meant to, I guess, imply that it's doing this impossible space thing that it's capable of doing. In which the third time he successfully catches the bear, or the bear's ring rather, and then it gets like pulled in, and then the thing we see, the other big thing we see from the trailer, is that little thing turning into a big bear monster, CGI monster, and giving him the big old spooks, and he wants to fuck right off after that. And he's gone to pretty much throughout the rest of the movie at this point, so, you know, that was a character, I guess. So Jess returns, seeing him leave, and his mom actually catches him with the whole drugs and says like, oh, this was like a description pill thing actually. And when Jess is alone after checking in, she decides to check in on Alice. So she sees the scavenger hunt there and sees the sheet being like flumped, so she just assumes that she is there. So she takes a picture of the entire sheet Um, and as she's doing this monologue about caring and about not feeling up to the task, or rather about being a mom, she kind of overhears her playing outside, and now only then is like, oh, I should probably check the sheet because I saw it flump move. And it's the bear, it's Chauncey, you see, it's Chauncey. So, this is where she flips over the paper and sees all the negative things that are required, including the big one, you gotta hurt yourself, and we see that she was about to impale herself with a nail. Just gets in the way of that injury being significantly worse. And she just thinks that she's in order of a therapist, so she has the older sister check in on Alice, while this therapist is hired on, or whatever it is, and is shown a similar case to the one that that she's going through currently. And she talks about the bear, and the therapist goes, "What bear?" And everything flips on its head because we've been seeing the bear as the audience, and then we realize, oh, right, okay, Jess has been an unreliable narrator this entire time. Bum, bum, bum. It turns out when we replay the footage, we actually never see Chauncey there. She is talking to nobody, and here is a distorted voice while she's not speaking, which is why the therapist thought she was taking up ventriloquism, was even happening. And furthermore, she checks her own footage of that room of when she was talking to that other woman, that crazy woman, with Chauncey there, quote unquote, and is no longer there, which is again the only reason I think that scene's inserted into the movie, is so that she can have another source of like, oh, I had him on camera. And then she's like, she sees Tyler approaching, she's like, "You saw the bear?" And she's like, "No, Tyler's just imaginary." It's like, uh-oh, why is Jess seeing the bear? Uh, bu- 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 bu. And so Jess, begins to look at her own, like, these old little notebook, and she sees the bear in almost all of her pictures. Meanwhile, while she's busy dealing with her own her own realization, Alice is in the basement drawing a doorway into another dimension or whatever, casual kid stuff. And the scavenger hunt has reached its finale point, at least for her. So Jess steps in alone, or steps out alone rather. And Tyler goes out to rage out on her about how she goes on about being the type of parent she is and being irresponsible. And I do feel like this is the most out of place scene in the entire movie. I don't know. I think that there's a thread missing before this scene that feels like it's missing here, perhaps. Like, I don't know, like the thread between Tyler dating this older guy and, being rejected because your mom, and then raging out on her. I don't think that those two threads necessarily connect in a meaningful way, necessarily. Especially in the way it's presented here. But I digress. So we see an old woman approach Tyler, because Jess leaves to go fuck off, and yeah, she begins like painting crazy for some reason to to recall memories. I'm assuming this is what this is. I mean, I'm trying to be as good faith as possible here because I have to imply it because it's not told to us. So I'm going in good faith and hoping that that is the correct or as correct as it conceivably can be. Anyway, so Tyler, Jess follows the list now because she had a copy of it. And once achieving said list, with Tyler being brought back in by the older woman when she explains what the mom went through when she was younger, this what allows the three of them to reunite in the household and finishing their version of the this ritual, as it were. And they all are separated by about a second. Tyler joins her pretty quickly, and then the old woman, whose name I don't remember, joins them shortly after that. Jess moves in, hearing something, and she sees through this doorway this flashback of her dad and what her dad actually did in the past, about how he blocked the doorway but was grabbed by this demon, and we see his eyes turn this glazy white color, and how that has like forever scarred him in a way that has led to why his behavior is the way it is. So, Gloria is the woman, by the way, the old woman. Sorry, I actually did write her name, I forgot. Again. Closes off the barrier, and then she goes on this diatribed monologue about wanting to discover this place, wanting to be here. They can stay here forever, going on and on and on. And then, within a second, and my god, this, just the way it happened is so comically funny, unfortunately, and I don't think it was meant to be. But she's abruptly grabbed after her diatribe and pulled in by a giant bear and immediately killed. And my god, I think that is probably the funniest part of this movie. And again, I think that it was unintentionally funny, but here we are. So Tyler sees Alice in the corner of this room. She rushes up ahead. Jess tries to follow her, but then is like set elsewhere, where she has to deal with the bear in her own way, and dealing with another fake Alice. But Jess manages to pull away. They reunite at some point here, and she's like, oh, we gotta stick together. So they both enter this room of their version of the house, like years ago, apparently. And they enter her room, seeing her mom, that being Alice's first mom, her biological mom, saying how she can stay here and how everything will be neat. And Tyler and Jess begins to destroy everything in the room, and then Alice is like, oh, what the heck? And then Tyler's also kind of like, what the heck? And then she starts creating a new thing out of the things that she's destroying, and kind of like, hey, saying that as she's doing it, so she gets Tyler to eventually join in, as she also sees like this light begin to glimmer, so she suspects that too, that this is actually causing something good to happen. Then Alice joins third and final, uh, and being persuaded that this is a fun activity, and what she's been doing is kind of like meh. So she decides to join her parents, or her mom anyway, her sister rather. So the mom stays behind to stop and stab the bear with a knife, then falls through this environment into this other open area. But Tyler pulls her out through the opposing secondary door, or the first door they went through, apparently. We cut to some time later, or at least it is assumed to be some time later, as she's at the hospital, that being Jess, reading to her own dad her new version of the book. And then we see the whole family turn their head in unison and their eyes turn all buggy and dark. So she is actually still in there. Yes, this movie literally fakes out the audience here, or attempts to pad out the ending of them actually getting out, by the way. Because Tyler ends up back in there, hitting the fake Tyler, pulling the real Jess out, and then when they or when they exit, they paint over the wall just as the dad did before to close out the doorway. That's not very effective, in which Alice grabs a match and lights the flame and catches everything on fire. And they manage to escape the household as it's burning its way to the ground. And they make their way to this motel or hotel or whatever it is. And they all three of them see a bear that looks pretty identical to Chauncey. And they see some kid holding it up. And they're like, well, we're out of here. And they leave. And that is Imaginary. I think this movie particularly rushes in, particularly as I alluded to with the whole bit with Tyler, from getting her swerving from her character arc, as it were, in a not so meaningful way. We have the younger daughter, Alice, who's just following this, these steps, then being treated to the therapist for like this brief moment, which is pretty, we don't know much about her other than she wants an imaginary friend, or finds one apparently. And we just get told that we that she is someone who is in need of that, rather than having any sort of setup to why she would need an imaginary friend, as the movie seems to imply. And the stepmother herself, I feel like the movie gets a little bit distracted with her as well, with the whole like suddenly painting thing. There are definitely a few scenes here that could definitely be cut, and then new ones being added in to sort of fill in these, what I think are necessary gaps to fill in. Again, like why Alice actually feels like she needs to find an imaginary friend. Maybe we actually, start the movie off with her at school or something. We actually see her interact, or maybe even lack of interact, with other students. Something to that effect, so that we actually see what they're talking about, rather than having to be told that explicitly. Giving us more scenes as to, other than the whole dating thing, which is a weird, based on the whole age thing itself, is already weird enough that Tyler's already kind of like okay with that initially. It just comes off as very off-putting from her, even considering her perspective on it. And it doesn't necessarily correlate to her. I don't think that's even enough to be like, well, she hates her mom, or feels like she needs to like snap back at her stepmom, I guess, in this instance. Again, I don't think that's enough. I think you need a little bit more material for Tyler there as well, to fill in the gaps in her story, or her arc rather, to make any logic, the leap of that to not be a leap anymore, of logic, of why she would suddenly snap at her stepmom in this way. And again, that could come from extending a few scenes, and again, cutting out the unnecessary ones, like the repetition of one of the earlier scenes, as I had mentioned. Things of that nature. The unnecessarily painting a portion of the ball and it accomplishing nothing. These scenes can clearly be cut. I think the relationship, the whole flirting aspect, obviously, I think you need to clearly change the age range here to fit and not be creepy in itself. And then from there, and with the additive bonus of the material I said that Tyler would need beforehand, now that can achieve a more reasonable way to get Tyler to snap back against the mom when it comes to dealing with Alice specifically. So yeah, definitely a few scenes needed, and definitely a few scenes needed removing. As is, I think this movie is closer to a 4 out of 10. I don't know if it even pushes as a 5 out of 10. Like, that would mean like an in-between movie, and I feel like there are just way too many things to fix here to even be like, this is a middle-of-the-road type of movie. I feel like that falls short of even that. So I don't know if I would push even lower than a 4, perhaps even a 3. So somewhere around a 3 or 4 out of 10, due to how much you need to readjust for the scripting of this movie to get it to be up to snuff to be a good movie. And that's my review of Imaginary. If you ended up enjoying it, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head you over to my petition to help out smaller YouTubers. Second and third to my Patreon and PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel directly. And fourth to my Discord server, you can join, collab, share, do all that cool stuff for free. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye!